Grab his wing, good soul. Okay, this is it. The final segment in the series, so that Mormons won't be deceived. As we're going over Yom Kippur and the Feast of Tabernacles. We're going into overtime because Mormons are wicked. And one of the greatest wickednesses of religion has been for a religion to accuse another religion of being other than what that religion is. For example, Christianity calls Jews witches. Roman Emperor Constantine claimed that he saw a sign in the heavens of the Chi Rho. That was his knowledge of astronomy for the date given in Revelation chapter 19, verses 11 and 17. An angel standing in the sun, which creates a shadow on the earth that crosses over a previous solar eclipse, creating the crossroads of the sun god. Thus, the Chi is the X for the shadow of the sun on earth, crossing where the Rho is. Rho comes from the Egyptian hieroglyph of a flag, ensign, symbolizing God. God at the crossroads. The sun god crossroads. And weirdly, that's my name. He who is from the crossroads of the sun god. Travis, God's soul. Sole. And so he kind of jumped the gun because that Chi Rho, he claims, happened under him. And it just happened on 8 April 2024. Likewise, Muhammad replaced the Jewish Jesus and said that he's actually Islamic. He was an Islamic spy in Christianity. And that Muhammad was the Jewish Christ, the man like Moses, going to the top of the mountain to receive the law of the Quran. And his symbol became what they claim is a new moon with a star. They just can't stop lying. Everything they say is a lie, or they really don't know. It's the same symbol from Revelation 19, 11, and 17. It's the sun being eclipsed by the angel, which is the moon. The star is the moon. The moon is the sun being eclipsed on 8 April 2024. This is supposed to be when their Jesus shows, both for Christianity and for Islam. But it's Jewish. The Jewish Christ is supposed to show on that day, 8 April 2024. Unfortunately, because of the damage of both Christianity and Islam, the Jews likewise have forgotten their origins and don't understand their own scriptures, which are also translated incorrectly. They have lost their way, and they need to be reclaimed. Because both Islam and Christianity are drooling right now because they believe their religions are going to be true with the destruction of the Jews in Israel. They are forcing the interpretation of their misinterpretation of Jewish scripture. This makes them evil. And so, we instead, communism also is an Islamic symbol. Why is that? China wants nothing to do with Islam. They're still holding hostages of Islam in their concentration camp that Disney got in trouble for. Drama, drama, drama. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints claims Joseph Smith is Christian. When the Book of Mormon starts off in 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2 that it's in the learning of the Jews, and you ignore that and say Christian, Jesus, that makes you just as evil as Christianity and Islam. And it's worse because it's your founder that you claim. That the Book of Mormon, your keystone, is now another testament of Jesus Christ, when clearly, for those who are literate, who can read and understand what they read, knows that you need to learn Jewish religion. You need to learn about the Jewish Christ. You need to know the Jewish calendar system. You need to learn the Jewish holy days. You need to know the Jewish practices. Even though they've lost their way, you still need to know it, so that when you go through the Book of Mormon, when you go through Joseph Smith's writings, you get the information corrected. So let us proceed with the dire warning for future Mormons by the founder of Mormonism in 1838 about a visionary account from 1923 on September 22nd. Remember Jewish calendar? Did you forget already? They start their days at 6 p.m. So in the evening of the 21st, which is the 22nd of the Jewish calendar, you should do that. I have not organized this. I've just assembled pictures and documents for this video. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to bring it all up. Alright, where are ya? Here we are. Let's see, 1823. Do you remember the 21st night, September 1823? 22nd of September was the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot. Uh-oh. Yeah, Joseph Smith is trying to tell us something in code. He's had about a decade now to learn about the religion Daddy put him in charge of. And so, yeah, now Joseph Smith is awesome. He definitely made up for having to be put on timeout for a whole year, allowing Martin Harris to steal the 116 pages, having Daddy rewrite them in Jewish Kabbalah rather than original Knights Templar. From William Morgan on 9/11, 1826. Canandaigua, New York, where Senior was the Master Mason. And so, yeah, it's the third day of Sukkot. It was the 20th, 21st, 22nd. And they never tell us this in seminary. But for Passover, when we do the Doctrine and Covenants year and we get to section 110 about the vision of Joseph Smith in the Kirtland Temple, seminary teacher told me that that was the third day of Passover. And so I go, oh, wow, cool. Yeah, because Book of Mormon says we're learning of the Jews. So it makes sense that Joseph Smith is tied into the Jews. So what the hell is this Jesus guy? How is he even, what? Nobody would explain. Nobody would explain. Okay. Feast of Tabernacles. Tents. Moses in the Exodus. The temple is a tabernacle, a tent. Alright. And so, you need to know about the new year of the Jews, which is civil in this case. Yeah. There's a civil and a religious calendar new year for the Jews. The one we had on 8 April 2024 was the last day of the religious year of the Jews. On October 2nd this year is the last day of the civil year of the Jews. Not a coincidence that both were solar eclipses. Moon standing in the sun. So, oh yeah, I probably should also remind you, in case you're not watching the other videos in this very long playlist, of which I had set up because of the dream I had on 9/11. I'm wanting to retire. Mormons don't believe. They want to be Christian abusers of Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. Denialists that who they are Egyptian, or yeah, Egyptian, Jewish Egyptians. They want to be Christian. And that's where the danger comes in here that Joseph Smith is warning about. The whole thing for 1838 is warning Mormons of this danger. And on 9/11 at 3 in the morning, I had a dream in which Irene laid his hands upon my head, and the number 15 came up twice. Ooh. I'm dreaming in Jewish Kabbalah. That's what's weird. So yeah, if you saw the seer portion video, you understand more about that. But it's all leading up to this. That Joseph Smith, by this point, is all of that. And he's been proving himself. And so section 107, verses 91 to 92, that the key of the president of the church is the Christ key of the Jews for the man like Moses. And that only Joseph Smith is a prophet, seer, revelator, and translator. That God gives the gifts, even though they're science knowledge. Not kooky, whacked out psycho, mystical, spiritual witness feeling crap. They're all science. Translation was your big clue. Translation is science. But because Paleo, Hebrew, and Egyptian were dead languages, they needed to be deciphered. And thus, only a decipherer is somebody who can figure it out. And though Jean Champollion deciphered the learning of the Greeks in the language of the Egyptians, he never did decipher the learning of the Egyptians in the language of the Egyptians. The guy that Joseph Smith is talking about is going to do it. As Joseph Smith did pretty good himself. Had a couple of errors, but he did okay. Okay. So again, let's go back. New Year, Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles. 7 days. In our calendar, they are 8 days. So 77 for Passover and Tabernacles. 7 and 7, 77. 8 and 8, 88. Remember my Hinckley dream? Yeah. They all tie in together. 15th of the month for both Passover and Tabernacles. 2 15s. 77, 88. And so, yeah, we had both 9/11s. 9th Av for the Jews and 9/11. The baptism of water first for the Jews and the baptism of fire for 9/11. 9/11, 1826, remember? 9/11, 1857, Mountain Meadows Massacre, remember? And yeah, 9/11 in America. They branched after 9/11, 1826. There was a group who stayed to find out who'd done it, who ruined their plot to destroy America. And then the others went to Plan B and moved down to the South to become the Confederates. With the inverted pentagram on their cross, meaning they conquered the Jews. That was their whole intention, is that the Jewish Christ is coming on 8 April 2024. And they say, no, we're going to make sure he doesn't come. Going to murder him with blood and soil. It's their land, not the New Jerusalem for the Jews. And thus came the KKK, and Jews will not replace us, America first, blah, blah, blah. Crap, 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 evil, evil, evil. And then Hitler inverted the pentagram. And if you noticed with the Islamic terrorism that's going on right now around the world and even in America, you'll see the inverted triangle of red for Islam. Yeah, they inverted it. Didn't have to. You were already evil from your creation, replacing the Jews and Christians who replaced the Jews. That's a level of evil that Dante did not conceive of. But then there's Mormons who went beyond. Because remember, there's a inverted pentagram on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple. Where'd that come from, Mormons? Wasn't Joseph. Alright. So many tangents to bring up and include for this. And so if this is a 5-hour video, we'll do it in 2 parts. Just giving you a heads up at 20 minutes in the video. Okay. New Year. 9 days later, Day of Atonement. 9 days is the number similar to the word salvation. Shua. So 9 days, and then boom, Day of Atonement. Remember, I did a church news video not too long ago where Nelson talked about the atonement and botched it, and I had to correct him. And sure enough, it has to do with the Day of Atonement. And then 6 days later is the 15th, in which Feast of Tabernacles begins. And so the 1st is New Year, 9th is Day of Atonement, 15th is Feast of Tabernacles. And this is the 3rd day of the Feast of Tabernacles. And Joseph Smith is in the act of prayer, calling upon God. Okay? In the first vision, he's in the act of calling upon God, thinking that he needs to atone. Here he is again, in the act of calling upon God. I discovered a light appearing in my room, which continued to increase until the room was lighter than at noonday. The Son, God, Emmanuel. When immediately a personage appeared at my bedside, standing in the air, for his feet did not touch the floor. Sun God. He had on a loose robe of most exquisite whiteness. He's wearing white. Joseph Smith is praying. Remember, New Year, Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles. And so it's a sheer thing so that he can see that he's naked underneath. He can tell that he's male. An actual human, not some mystical spirit entity. Seed, egg, raised up baby. And so his skin is white. Not olive skin, not black, not brown, not yellow, not green, not blue, not purple, not red, white. And so, at first, Joseph Smith was scared of me. I mean, him. But fear soon left. Oh, yeah, you're just normal. He's also large of stature. He's Nephi, and Nephi is large of stature. 6'5", just like Superman. The house of hell. For God. Gets his power from the sun. Comes from Krypton. Kolob. Created by Jews, guys. Created by Jews. If only George Lucas was smart enough to know Judaism to incorporate more Jewish symbolism in Star Wars. Would have made it a lot better. Having Luke Skywalker be 6'5" rather than Harrison Ford, which was actually 6'4", I think he is. But nonetheless. So he calls him by name, and he says that he is Malachi, messenger, angel, Malachi in Hebrew, sent from the presence of God to Joseph Smith, and that his name was Nephi. Willard Richards is a naughty, naughty boy. He's the one responsible for putting in Jesus Christ in the name of Joseph's church after Joseph Smith died, because in 1842, Jesus wasn't put in there. This was written in 1838. Joseph Smith didn't get it published. Why is that, Willard Richards? Oh, there was a coup going on. There was election fraud and a decertification of the election and blaming Joseph for it when he was 2 days away. And then a civil war broke out, and Joseph got framed and blamed and locked up in Liberty Jail while Brigham Young took over the church and called it the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, threatened Mormons who didn't follow him with his new cooed religion to be murdered. And so Thomas B. Marsh left, filled out an affidavit saying that the Danites told him that Joseph Smith is in charge of the church now, and he changed the name and he's going to coup America. And so the extermination order against Mormons rather than just the Danites, blaming all Mormons, not just the Danites. And then David Whitmer likewise left, went to Oliver Cowdery, who had left earlier in 1838, and said Joseph Smith changed the name of the church. No vote. They're threatening to murder all of us. Yeah, and so who are the evil-disposed and designing militant persons against Joseph Smith and his church? Joseph Smith papers tell us that it's whatever group that Willard Richards was a part of. The Danites of Brigham Young, of the inverted pentagram, of Lucifer. Right there for all Mormons to know and not be deceived. Who the enemy is, who changed Joseph Smith's church from Jewish to Christian. And so, Nephi says that God has a work for Joseph Smith to do as Messiah ben Joseph. 2 Nephi chapter 3 verse 5. Ben means son of. Joseph Smith is the founding Christ of Mormonism in the learning of the Jews. He is to set up the religion, set up the temple rituals of washing and anointings, Melchizedek, actually Amen, section 107 verse 2. Before time it was the order of the Son of God. Well, what is the name? To avoid the too frequent repetition, we use Melchizedek. Melech, king, Zadok, high priest. Melchizedek. You are washed to become a high priest. and a high priestess. Gotta include the women. Can't take it away from them, Brigham. And then you go into the anointings, king and queen. Fall of the kings, both their queens on the throne. Melchizedek, Amen, the name of Christ, is now being given to you in Joseph Smith's temple. You now are perfect. Be ye therefore perfect, even as I and your Father in heaven are perfect. The temple rituals of washing and anointing to become the name of Christ. Melchizedek. And yet this church says you're still wicked. You're still not perfect. You'll never be perfect. You gotta strive for perfection after you're dead. Really? Are you fully paid up on your debt to Jesus? I thought Jesus atoned for us so that we don't have to pay him back. What happened with that, section 119? Oh wait, I get it now. 1838. No wonder it violates the Book of Mormon. And so, Joseph Smith will his name will be had for good and evil. The evil we see in verse 1. Brigham Young's missionaries going around telling everybody lies. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ. And they still do it to this very day. And so then he talks about a book. This is an exact same pattern match to Lehi's second vision. Not a coincidence. And so the Book of Mormon on Knights Templar gold Egyptian plates, buried in southern Illinois, where X marks the spot for the location of the New Jerusalem. The Cairo, the Confederate cross, who are going to replace the Jews with a coup. And so the informer inhabitants, which were the people of the sun god at the sun city with the sun chief, giving human sacrifices of the death of the sun god symbolism in the latter days on 8 April 2024, right there at the crossroads. Chicoita? I don't know if I pronounced that right. They just automatically disappeared after the Knights Templar showed up among the Mandan Indian tribe of the Dakotas in 1363, the Kensington Stone. Then they just disappeared. Nobody knows why. People speculate, say that it was a migratory thing. That's the best they can figure. No. Somebody bought the land and buried Egyptian gold treasure plates in the caves. Remember that? John Taylor said that Joseph Smith told him that he had a vision of caves of Egyptian gold treasure plates in them. The enemy knew, the enemy found out, the enemy joined, the enemy infiltrated, rose up in number, rose up in rank, caused the coup, caused the murder, with the ledger, the Judas price. Section 119. And he is given a Urim and Thummim. constitutes seers, even though seer technically is the dream that he's having. And it was for the purpose of translating the book. And it's not actually translating. Joseph Smith had nothing to do with the composition of the Book of Mormon, remember? Daddy had to rewrite the 116 pages. Sidney Rigdon's the major author of the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith was just a babysitter. He's supposed to read the Book of Mormon to Martin Harris, who believes that he is writing it firsthand. And then he stole the 116 pages that were written by William Morgan at the Canandaigua Lodge, where Joseph Smith Sr. was the Master Mason, so that Joseph Smith can learn his role and responsibility. And so then the quoting of Malachi begins. And there's a change, there's additions in here. And so yes, the destruction of the people is coming. Whose people? Who is the Book of Mormon for? Christians? Islamists? No, those who join Joseph Smith's church. Brigham's Church of Jesus. All last year was the bicentennial year. 2 years ago, right before conference, I told you, pay attention. Next year is the bicentennial year of the second vision. You know, a certain event occurred in 2020 to prevent Nelson from doing what he wanted to have done that year, or at least what he was claiming to have done that year. Apparently there was some deal made with China. And I told you to pay attention as to whether or not Nelson is gonna bring it up. And I bet you he wouldn't. And he didn't. And all that year, nothing. And finally, they bring out the ledger of the Danites that paid the Judas price to have Joseph murdered and for Brigham Young to flee the country to come to this valley with. As Nelson's claiming it's proof of the truth of Section 119 violating the Book of Mormon. Rather than referring to the Danites' replacement of Section 85, the Book of the Law. Joseph Smith did not have a Book of the Law. He was prophesying. So Nelson provided the Book of the Law of those who are apostates. Which in 85 don't go to Zion. Well done, Nelson. Good job. Hilarious. And I did a whole video series on that one for 6 hours. Wearing the red shirt. So notice, white shirt this time. And so here's the warning. The day cometh that shall burn as an oven. This is Malachi. You need to know Malachi. Because will a man rob God? Yea, ye have robbed me. Wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse. Joseph Smith is being told, or is telling us actually, that Zion's economy is no money, no price. You labor for Zion to put your stuff that you make into the storehouse so that everybody can profit in Zion. And the more people, the more diverse the products. Bada book, bada boom, Zion, the pure in heart. And so if you do not pay tithing, you are not in Zion. This church, however, turned it into slavery of Section 119. No storehouse involved. That's a separate source of income for the church, which they take 10% out of all fast offerings, invested in an LLC company just like Ensign Peak Advisors for tithing. They invested in the stock market, violating SEC rules and regulations. And then what money is left over with Temple Welfare Square and the Bishop's storehouses gets laundered into an offshore bank account in a non-extradition country that can't be traced by our government. For the sole purpose of Heber J. Grant's Articles of Incorporation. The Mormons are just the cash cows to make the church rich so that they can pump it up. And here we get to it here in this next one. But they that come shall burn them. See, Christians, even the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Islam are blaming Jesus for this burning at his coming. That Jesus is going to murder people. Bloodbath by Jesus. That Jesus is resurrected from the grave and getting revenge. SNL. That was an awesome episode. Even the one this year for Easter, that was hilarious. The three Marys. Okay? So no, Joseph Smith got it right. It's these religious fanatics who think that they've got to be wicked to have Jesus come. And so they're going to do it. They that come shall burn Mormons. But you've forgotten Albert Pike in all of this. His letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, in which he says, we're purposely going to pit Christians and Islam against each other. You thought it was Israel and Islam. Oops. Zionists are Christian. Islamists are Islamists who usurped Christianity and Judaism. And so, yes, that's why Islam have infiltrated all the world for this day and age. So when October 7th happened, nobody was condemning in Islam Hamas's attack. Everybody supports it and are complicit. There are no innocent civilians. They are all around the world, even as high up as government, to try to force laws to protect Islam, to go against Israel and cause a Holocaust, to stop the big, bad, mean Israelis. In the city of peace, there will be peace when Israel is dead. And so yes, this also has to do with the enemy in verse 1. Hey, that's Brigham Young. The threat. 19 July 1840 in the Joseph Smith Papers. Why won't the church publish that as part of the sections in the Doctrine and Covenants that need to be included, along with the King Follett sermon? Why? They say on the homepage of the website that it's the authoritative source for all things Joseph Smith, but they won't make the changes. They won't talk about it at conference. And so thus Mormons don't go, and Mormons don't find out. Mormons are left in the dark. And then the next one, from Malachi. I will reveal unto you the priesthood by the hand of the God Yah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Passover is Elijah. Tabernacles have a dual 7 for angels, messengers, Malachi's. We'll get to it. I got the picture. It's actually text. And so then there's a change. It's actually addition to this passage. And he shall plant in the hearts of the children the promises made to the fathers, and the hearts of the children shall turn to their fathers. Brigham turned this into baptisms for the dead, to take away agency and subject the dead to bondage, holding the living in extortion, saying you gotta pay tithing, section 119, to save your kindred dead, do their temple work for them, and those Jewish Holocaust victims too. Nope. This is where Superman comes in. Marlon Brando. The father becomes the son becomes the father. It's the circle of life. Seed, egg, raised up baby. And so, what is added, if it were not so, the whole earth would be utterly wasted at his coming. And so this is even more deadlier when you see previously leaving them neither root nor branch, and then the whole earth being utterly wasted, with fathers and sons being referenced. Previously, the day that shall burn as an oven is just leaving neither root nor branch. Joseph explains this in verse 40. They who will not hear his voice shall be cut off from among the people. Joseph Smith and this future Christ, me, if Mormons do not believe, will be utterly destroyed and burned because they aren't going to Zion in the Exodus. And what this church is planning to do, as I've been throwing it in videos, 8K videos, this is why they turned it Christian, is that they're going to destroy this church. Albert Pike confirms this. Christianity, Islam, all destroyed, so that Mormons, along with other religious people, have no guide or compass to tell them what to think and feel and believe. Utter destruction. And then Lucifer, you guys were wicked, you're to blame, therefore we have to take away your agency because you can't be trusted with your free agency. And then you become slaves, and we'll have to rebuild the population of man, and so women typically aren't involved in war, so there's going to be very few guys and lots of women. Polygamy for the few men, done on purpose. And so it's the rich who are able to build their little bunkers, who are planning to have the child bride virgins. Bezos, huh? Wants little girls after his divorce to comfort him. Elon Musk. Yep. And so, yeah, that's what this whole AI scam is all about. It's not intelligent. It's telling you how to think, how to feel, how to believe by revising history. Telling you to murder people. Murder yourself. All to cause the day that shall burn as an oven, and thus destroy all religion with the cataclysm. But also the extermination of mankind. And also no messiahs. If they succeed, there will be no Zion. And if there is no Zion, there's no need for a Jewish Christ, because nobody believed in him to go to Zion and build it. It's supposed to be the only place on earth at peace, safety, and refuge. With the economy that is set out here in Malachi. And also in the Book of Mormon, exposing priestcraft as evil of section 119. And so, this is what the church is planning. Heber J. Grant added to the Articles of Incorporation, not Heber J. Grant, Harold B. Lee. 1973. Upon the winding down and dissolution of this corporation, not church, corporation of Heber J. Grant. It's not a church, it's a corporation. And you, Mormons, are their cash cows. Being led to believe you're a religion. Because these were articles of incorporation. It was done in secret. 1923, there was no Freedom of Information Act. 1973, he figured nobody would even think to use the Freedom of Information Act so that nobody would know about it. Mormons are not to know of this. Mormons cannot know, Mormons must not know. Way to perfection. Joseph Fielding Smith, Sr., page 291. The coup is coming, just like in 1838. They are the enemy. And so they are purposely planning to take the money and run, to destroy this church and do away with Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon forever. leaving Mormons without a guide and compass. And we see it with Mormons who leave. Not a single one of them leaves because the Book of Mormon is Jewish. It's been me. This is the evil they're planning. And Mormons are committing crimes for this church. And I don't think they really understand that they're being used as tools. Because there ain't gonna be a Zion. And so you have time still to repent, to make atonement, or Judgment Day is coming. So yeah, interestingly, it also corresponds with Islamic Judgment Day, because this year it's on Friday night into Saturday. So yeah, it very likely could be Islam that does this, but it's not 9/11. The Jewish religious 9/11, because it can't be the civil one, which we already had, is not until December, because this year was a leap year. Normally it would be in November, like last year. Well, patterns, dualisms. Okay, and so then the 11th chapter of Isaiah. That's the root and the branch that was added by Joseph Smith in verse 37, leaving them neither root nor branch. Joseph Smith and me. I'm the branch, Joseph is the root of Isaiah 11. That it's about to be fulfilled, which means it's not Jesus. If it's about to be fulfilled, and you think Jesus is real from the Roman period time, and Joseph says it's about to be fulfilled, it's not Jesus. It's Joseph. Joseph is the root to set it all up. Messiah ben Joseph. And then he quotes 3rd chapter of Acts, 22nd, 20 verses, precisely as they stand in our New Testament. It says destroyed, not cut off. Greek says utterly destroyed. And so utterly wasted in verse 39, and then destroyed in verse 42. Joseph knows. He's wanting you to study. And so that prophet is the Christ. And it says that Moses said there will be a man like Moses. 2 Nephi chapter 3 verse 5. Joseph Smith is Messiah ben Joseph, but he's not Messiah ben David Moses. The prophet, who is a man like Moses, descendant of David, who is the Christ. And so if Joseph Smith and this Messiah ben David Moses is not Jesus, as Joseph Smith is about to fulfill the Isaiah 11 prophecy, and then he talks about Messiah ben David Moses and says the day had not yet come when he would come for Mormons to hear him or be cut off. soon would come, 200 years later. And then go to 2 Nephi chapter 3, verse 5. Joseph Smith is to be remembered in the covenants of the Lord, that the Messiah shall come unto Mormons in the latter days. Here it is here again. Joseph Smith is first, then the Mormon, the Christ for Mormons in the latter days. Me. Not Jesus. We're not Christian. A man like Moses with a serpent staff and Baby Yoda for Star Wars and Superman cap. And the Chad Daybell who botched it bigly. But there's something to that, as we are going to get to it again because of the weirdness that's going on. Alright, so, and then Joel, sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven, dreams, visions, etc. Okay, and so 2 sets, 22nd of September, 4 times in each set. Dualisms. So they've all happened. Alright, so I talked about that. Jewish religion, the Christ is Messiah ben David Moses, whose name is Emmanuel. You need to know the holy days. They have to do with a man like Moses in the Exodus, and thus the Jewish calendar is part of that. Malachi, no root or branch, to destroy the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith and me. Yom Kippur, yeah. Okay, I think that's where we start. Is Yom Kippur now. Okay, so we got that taken care of. And so, yeah, we will go home and deliver us will be the theme songs in the description below. Just so that you know. If there was a Judas Priest song, we would have put that, like we did for most of the others. Notice I put the prayer for translator. Anybody noticing these? I do this on purpose, guys. I just don't throw out songs. I want to listen to this song today. Okay, so I think we do need to go to Yom Kippur. And this is Sukkot. And we got this. Okay, this we should bring up. In Exodus is the festival of ingathering. In Leviticus is saying that it refers to the Exodus as to why Sukkot is practiced, whereas in the Exodus it's an ingathering. The keys of Moses is the gathering of the house of Israel to Zion. And so it's interesting that the different authors of these different books refer to this event in a different way, but it's all the same thing. In Deuteronomy, it's the festival of booths, tabernacles, tents. And then Numbers, it's a coup attempt settled at the tabernacle, the tent, the temple. So interesting about that. See, Miriam and Aaron, the brother and sister of Moses, are trying to take over the religion from Moses. It's a coup attempt. And yeah, sure enough, prophecy, revelation, coup attempt to take over the church and destroy it. With the golden calf and orgy sex of the Dionysian order. What is interesting is Leviticus does not have Leviticus in the name in Hebrew. That was a Christian thing, which the Jews then took over and claimed. But Leviticus actually means the command of a seer from Paleo-Hebrew. Remember, translator? So that was an interesting thing to know. Okay. Now we can throw this away. And again with Yom Kippur. So that goes in that pile. Passover this year. Yeah, okay. So I've been noting the dualisms that are going on this year, as this is the last year of the latter days, and there's Passover and Tabernacles, which is every year, but this is the last year. And it's 7 days under the Jewish calendar, but 8 days under our calendar. And so 77 and 88 from my Hinckley dream. And they both start on the 15th day of the Jewish calendar month. Thus the double 15s from the Irene dream. There's 2 lunar eclipses. The first one was on Purim, the book of Ishtar, Esther, Isis. The Jewish queen of the Persian king who freed them from Babylon, but they apparently stayed under Persian rule. The Jews were supposed to be freed and went back to Jerusalem to rebuild a second temple. But the book of Esther, Ishtar is the Babylonian name, and it derives from the Egyptian Isis. That's why I mix them up with my associated memory. They find out that the enemy is building a weapon to destroy the Jews. Esther, the new favored queen, after the birth, or the first wife, did not want to dance naked in front of the king's guests. So she divorced and left. And then he had Esther be his new queen. And so Marduk, comes to Ishtar, Esther, and says, hey, this guy who works for the king is plotting to murder the Jews, deport them from America, and murder them. And so can you tell the king that you too are going to be involved? And that's how the Jews are saved. She breaks into the king's chambers. Because she's favored of the king, he does not murder her for breaking into his chambers without being called upon. And she pleads with him about this plot to murder her, not just the Jews. So when he finds out that his beloved queen is about to be murdered, oops, Deuteronomy 19 kicks in. The false accuser now gets punished for the same punishment that the falsely accused would have been punished for. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. The real meaning of that. Okay, so that's Purim. On the last year of the latter days. And I just went over with you. They that come are going to burn you, and destroy Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. They are going to exterminate the human race. Mormons. And so those who listen to me can be saved. We'll have to gather at the waters of Mormon to plan our exodus so that we're a ragtag fugitive band in all different spaceships trying to find the lost 13th colony that went to Earth. He was a Mormon. Glen A, which one? One was the member of the 70, and the other was the one who is involved in Battlestar Galactica. But that's where he got it from. And so you'll see Mormonisms in there. The betrayal of Baltar. The Judas. Yep. So yeah, awesome. Especially the reboots with AI. The Terminator machines. Who become Christian to the one God. Awesome. And sure enough, in this particular reboot, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't heard, cover your ears if you want to watch it. The Earth is utterly wasted at their coming. And they find out that they were Cylons all along. AI machines from the metaverse. Oh, that was so sad. She just wanted to get attention to her cause. She had no intention of being a martyr for the cause. As the boy in her little band of trio blew him and her up on the train. And they were supposed to go to, was it Caprica? To join the movement out there. And so that was sad. But, yeah. The girlfriend couldn't go through with it, didn't want to go, and then was horrified by the bomb. And then she went back into the metaverse to be with her as a metaverse AI. And Daddy found out, and Daddy is working on a military weapon of Cylons to get a government contract, and he's having difficulty trying to figure out the AI programming for it, as he was the one who created the metaverse in the first place. And he just couldn't figure out that final missing link to make it work. And there he finds out that his daughter had figured it out the whole time. She had used his metaverse to create the AI that figured out the whole system for the Cylons. So, yeah, that was awesome. Anyway, I'm wanting to watch it all now. But I'm still trying to finish Stargate. Battlestar Galactica is next, and I may not get to Battlestar Galactica. We'll see, but I finished the stuff that I had gotten from Graywell the last week. And so I watched what I wanted to watch from that. It was an upgrade thing that I do. I don't want to get into that problem right now. We're trying to save your life. Don't want to hear about my problems. And so the 2 solar eclipses. which were on the very last day of the Jewish calendar year for both the religious and the civil. And then we had the dualism again from last year of 9/11 and 9th Ave. Last year, the 9/11 was when Nelson fell. And I did a whole countdown video series. And so when Nelson fell on 9/11, he kept it a secret from us. Because he didn't want me to be right. Wanted me to believe that I had failed and I'm a false prophet. And so you have to trust in Nelson, who doesn't even claim to be a prophet. Just the title. And so yeah, he finally revealed it right before conference. 3 weeks later. A bastard. So that's what the whole atonement is for confessing. Otherwise, judgment on Judgment Day for the Jews, the Day of Atonement. Nelson will not confess. They keep lying to us. This church can never tell us the truth. It ruins their whole authority and their plot to destroy everything, to coup the governments, to cause destruction, to cause the World War III, to cause civil war, cause the bloodbath. Nelson is in charge of it all. This church has been plotting it. As the Confederates went to the south, the Mormons did it to Joseph and headed west. It was intended that the whole West was Brigham Young's kingdom, and that the East would be the United States of America, as the Confederates would coup it. And then, latter-day destruction of Christianity with a bloodbath war, but it didn't work out that way. Their plans failed because they're not prophets. And so it ended up being what it is. So 9/11, 1857 was Brigham Young sending Mormons north and south to create the border, but pioneers wanted to come and settle, and John D. Lee was there to murder them. Stay off our land. That was the whole problem with the war in 1838. It was all about land. Danites claimed Atonement as their secret headquarters, as their symbolism for the latter days. And there was a guy running for office in Davies County who says, I got a plan on how we can develop the land, which was Atonement for those secret Danites. They had no clue. They just knew that this is the West, and we're settling the West, and he says, I have a plan on how we can develop the land up there. And the Danites didn't want that to happen. That's their land. But they didn't incorporate it. And so instead, they caused the war. All the Danites were called over to Atonement for the big priesthood meeting. That's the whole symbolism behind it. Section 116 is a forged document. Joseph Smith didn't go there. It's fresh, brand new ink, 40 years after the original papers that they began writing from. And so it's 40 years after 1838, which is the time when Brigham Young died, which was when they were put in Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants, the year before he died. They were written right then to be put in. You have to know these things when you're investigating. And so the Danites then marched down to the polling station and did voter intimidation and threatening not to vote for that guy. And then one of the townsfolk punched, I think it was Stuart, but it could have been Curtis, one of their ancestors, knocked him to the ground, and thus began the fight, the war. As one of the Danites announced that they are the Danites, judges in Hebrew. And thus the judgment day, to destroy everybody. Thus the same as Islam's judgment day and Christians' judgment day, blaming the Jesus character as the one who's going to murder everybody when it's actually the religious people who are going to do it. And so then Thomas B. Marsh writes that the Danites were taking the spoils of the war to their headquarters in Atonement, claiming that there were bishop storehouses there. But they made the mistake of claiming that Joseph Smith was the leader of the Danites, that Joseph Smith approved all of this and was ordering it. And then you see the section 117 also added right before Brigham Young died. Who's the Nicolaitan Band? Where was David, or Newell K. Whitney? Where was his house? He's supposed to go to Atonement, huh? Interesting. Some things were not decoded, Bruce R. McConkie. You missed it. Yeah, and then I did the last week, wasn't it? Dear God. The Nicolaitan Band exposes who the Danites are. That they raped each other's wives. Their wives were passed around to all the Danites. It wasn't just polygamy. It was a free-for-all sex orgy fest. Worshipping the golden calf and the Dionysian orgy sex. They themselves admit it by forging a document claiming it was Joseph Smith who was not a part of the Danites. Oops, they forgot. They had accused Joseph of being the leader of the Danites. Maybe, I guess they thought that since they put in the Nicolaitan Band that nobody would connect it to the Danites. Oops. You know, like Dark Helmet says, evil is dumb. It's as good as dumb. And again, Jewish. May the sports be with you. And so, yeah, 9th Ave was the baptism of water, and the water poured down on Utah, and poured, just like 1 Kings 18, Elijah versus the priests of Baal. And I did the advanced videos, the countdown videos with the countdown playlist, and it happened. And then 9/11 did the countdown video again, and the baptism of fire. Lightning on 9/11 struck Thule and caused a fire. That was a pretty big fire. And so, yeah, it happened. Mormons are supposed to be paying attention, because this was nature. You're supposed to pay attention, like the earthquake in Magna knocking out the horn of Moroni, the one mighty and strong Gabriel knocking out the horn of Moroni. Supposed to pay attention, Mormons. You're being warned, and you're not getting it. And then it's a leap year, so there's the 2 Adars. And also with the 7-8 year thing, or the 77-88, there's also 2017 to 2024, which is the full length of the latter days, is 7 years, but technically 8 years because you count 2017 too. So, overtime. Mormons ignoring the latter days in hopes it goes away. Can't do that, Mormons. Oaks told you. You can't ignore it. It's gonna happen. Okay. So let us go back in time. There we go. Because I added some text in the picture last night. So I made a VIC snap, a VLC snap, as it's called. So, there was an author who published books about the lunar tetrad. It's where you have 2 sets of 4. Just like Joseph Smith. 2 sets of 4 on the 22nd of September. Go figure. And so, yes, 2014, 2015, 2021, 2022. Sun shall be dark, moon turn to blood, stars fall from heaven. And so it's 2 sets, the sun and the moon eclipses. That's where this dumbass didn't fully understand what was going on. But the lunar eclipses, for religion, the Egyptian eyes of Horus, the right eye, government, Emmanuel, husband, father, bridegroom, and then religion, the woman, wife, church. And so the religion, see, it was theocracy anciently. The 2 eyes of Horus are the word in Egyptian PTR, which is seer. And so with eclipses, it means death and collapse, fall. Sun shall be dark, moon turn to blood, stars fall from heaven. Remember Joel? So Joseph Smith is warning us that this 2014-2015 Passover and Suck It tetrad includes solar eclipses too, and is going to be the pre-show for Mormons to be warned that we're Jewish. Passover is the Exodus. Suck It is the Exodus. They're both about the Exodus. Dualism. So yes, the Bible stories are not literal history. They are prophecy and revelation. Here it is. The day and the hour of the Jewish stories about Passover and the Feast of Tabernacles. Suck it. And so on the 15th of April 2014, I just barely got freed from the church's incarceration of me, attempting to murder me, locked up, disappeared. No court, no trial, no sentencing, no judgment. No hearings, no due process, every law violated. Hey, just like that Jesus guy of literal history, right? Couldn't be prophecy and revelation. And so, in my freedom, I'm living in an apartment downtown, and I hear on the news about an eclipse, lunar eclipse going to happen. Oh, cool. And so I'm thinking, is an apostle of the Lord Jesus going to die? Just like I knew from Faust and Hinckley. I already ran the tests. I was kind of amazed. That's interesting. I had only been told of the Assyrian king about solar eclipses. And so I'm the only one who knows to run the test for lunar eclipses. And it just so happens that it only corresponds with presidents of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with a few exceptions of other apostles. And so again, I'm running the test. Somebody gonna die. It comes, it goes, nothing happens. Okay, well, whatever. I guess that was a failed test. Nobody told me. And I didn't have a computer system yet. I don't think. No, I didn't. I would get that later on that year. And so I didn't know about the solar eclipses or any of that. I didn't have my Urim and Thummim yet. Then, for 8 October 2014, I learned from the news that another lunar eclipse is happening. And I go, oh, is that what it is? There's going to be 2 prophets dying? They didn't tell me it was a tetrad. So sure enough, it comes and goes. I'm going, okay, this is weird. I thought there was something there. I have to conclude that there isn't. And then, conference Saturday morning, 4th of April, 2015, finally the news tells us the truth. It's a tetrad. And I went, holy crap. It's the Holy Grail. And so, afterwards, May 5th, 2015, L. Tom Perry. July 3rd, 2015, President of the Quorum of 12 Apostles. And then 22nd of September. Interesting. 2015 on Yom Kippur. Perry, Packer, Scott bite the big one. And so the solar eclipses are also of interest. They were the same time frame, but the 2015 ones were significant. 20th of March 2015 occurred on the 1st of Nisan, whereas the September 13th 2015 was the new year for 5776. All right? Yeah, 8 years would be it. And so, yeah, very interesting pattern that Joseph Smith knew and told us about. And Monson came out and said, no, Chad Daybell, you're wrong. This is nothing to do with the latter days. The latter days are not here. Nothing to see here. Move along. Chad Daybell chose to go to the dark side of the force and is now going to be executed. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Jesus will save him in the coming days with the war. Please don't let him get away with it. Okay? So yeah, this was a warning to Mormons. All Mormons felt it with their spiritual witnesses. But when Monson came out and said no, all Mormons said, oh, okay, I guess I was wrong. Church isn't true. Oh my God. And so yes, we are waiting. So Perry, Packer, and Scott set up Oakes and Nelson. Nelson became the president of the Quorum of the 12, and then succeeded to be the president upon Monson's death. Holland is also included in this because Hales died there in 2017 on October 1st, which this year, October 1st, is the day before the solar eclipse, which is the last day of the Jewish year. See the timing? The first year, now we're in the last year. This is weird. And just in case you don't understand how weird it is, on the 21st of August 2017, it was not only President Monson's birthday, it was not only a fulfillment of prophecy of all scripture for the first day of darkness, but it was also the ancient Egyptian religious calendar New Year, which is a 360-degree calendar, or 360-day calendar, which means this is the one and only one time that a solar eclipse occurs on a new year. And this revealed that the Egyptians are indeed seers, prophets, revelators. As translator, well, they made the language. They are the ones with the David-Moses pharaonic dynasty. Number 18. David Moses III. The man like David Moses III. And so this knowledge of a solar eclipse on the first year is the right eye of Horus for a reason. Because when Horus goes back to restore the kingdom of his father, who was murdered by his brother Set, Set plucks out his right eye for a solar eclipse at the start of the latter days. It's a prophecy in Revelation. It's not a myth. All Egyptologists have missed it. Maybe Dorothy Murdoch, if she continued to live and do research rather than just conclude that the Bible is plagiarized. Just like the Book of Mormon. So, there's a harvest moon eclipse for the 17th and 18th of September. Super Harvest Moon Eclipse 2024. It's going to be extra special, says Ann Buckle. And so, yeah, that's just 2 more days away in the nighttime for the 17th and 18th. It's the harvest moon. The keys of Moses, ingathering, harvest, harvesting Mormons. Thrust in your sickle, because the field is white, all ready to harvest or be burned. Just in that one passage, burned. Hilarious. Okay, now let's go over Yom Kippur. And so it's in connection with the New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and Feast of Tabernacles, because Kippur, as I explained, correcting Nelson on Atonement, the K is the scroll symbol from the Egyptian hieroglyphs in Paleo-Hebrew script, linear script. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, remember? And pur is fruit. That's the root word, pur. Pur, fruit. And so, what is the doctrine of faith? That you render it extinct by producing knowledge. How do you produce the knowledge? By producing the results of the word to judge whether it is true or false, good or bad, right or wrong. You don't get a seed of the word and say, I feel it is true, I now know everything. You're wrong, Travis. A woman does not take the seed of man in hand. And get a spiritual witness feeling that she's now pregnant. Sorry, honey, you gotta produce the baby so that we can judge you. You can't claim immaculate conception if you ain't even showing. Oh my God, how did you fall for that one, Mormons? How do you think that the rest of us are not falling for it? And that you're angry with us for not falling for it? Oh my hell. Which brings up a nightmare scenario. When I was in the younger singles ward, I've told this story several times before, the bishop decided on fast and testimony meeting, which, not today, 2 weeks ago, to prevent the youth from doing their testimonies at sacrament. And spent the whole time rambling off a list. And I was way in the back in the cultural hall. And so I don't know if he was reading from a paper. He would have had to. He wrote them all down and was reading from them. All the lists of names of different masturbation techniques. Which, pearl necklace. Oh, that's what ZZ Top meant. the whole time a whole long list of different names. So I have no idea what the one is for hands. I have 2 little hands. All because he was upset with the sinful Mormons. Didn't want them testifying. Oh my God. And so, yeah, because we're going into overtime, I'm going to get Bad Boys, Ride or Die, is it? So I'm excited to have that come. Better be a good disc. Okay, so remember, New Year, Yom Kippur, Tabernacles. And so Kippur is the writing of fruit prophecy. Because you write about it, you'll liken the word unto a seed. Has to be planted and producing fruit. No immaculate conception or masturbation involved. Wayside seed. And so, the New Year is what we in America do with New Year. We have New Year's resolutions, what we hope to do, what we want to change and start a new habit. And so for the Jews, they inscribe our fate for the coming year in the book of life. And then Yom Kippur is the sealing of our judgment as to whether or not we'll be written in the Lamb's book of life by Adam, who is Michael. Thoth, who is David, an Egyptian. And so 85 again refers to this. It is not good for man to be alone. Not good at all. And so, here's the book of the law of God in verse 7. But then, and they who are not found in the book of remembrance, which is also called the book of law. Nelson thought he was being sneaky, trying to prove me wrong. Oops. You should have known better, Nelson, not to go up against me. You have no game. I had well established that all these years, and yet he still thinks, oh my hell. And so, yeah, this is what it's referring to here, is the new year, writing our completion, our fruit, our judgment. That's what atonement refers to, our fate. And so, will Mormons pass their second estate? It's not looking good for you, is it? And you thought that just by being Mormon, you were automatically going to be given 10 child bride virgins in the celestial kingdom. And so those who are of the high priesthood, and it's capitalized, and everybody knows that that's apostles and prophets. whose names are not found in the book of the law. Brigham Young is not found in the book of the law. Remember when I did that? It was hilarious. Or that are found to have apostatized. This whole church is one big apostasy. We go on our missions when we talk to Christians about the great apostasy of the church of Jesus with the death of the apostles and Jesus, so that we can justify claiming that our church is true because we restored the priesthood and the authority through Joseph, and we murdered him and claim his authority without having authority. We don't tell them that. We don't get told that. Yeah. This whole church is apostate. It's the great and abominable church. Joseph Smith is saying this. This was a letter. This was never intended to be published. Brigham Young chose it to get published the last year before he died, among his forged documents. Otherwise, he had no intention of publishing this, because he's verse 8. He has no authority to touch the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. Neither does Nelson. It's coming. The vivid shaft of lightning struck on 9/11, Nelson. Are you hiding something again this year? Did something happen to you too? You're not wanting to talk about? Oaks is involved. And so instead of a Leviticus story from Leviticus 10, which the Jews understand and know about regarding Yom Kippur, which we're going to cover here, Joseph Smith instead covers a story from Ezra to explain the apostasy of the future prophets of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who will not get an inheritance from this among the saints of me, the Most High Sun God at noonday. Okay? So that needs to be taken into context here with the word atonement. It is the writing, prophecy, revelation of the future, specifically not just generally for the whole church, but individually for each and every one of you. Are you believing, or are you just listening because this is whacked out stuff that you've never heard anybody else talk about? And what crazy thing am I going to say next? And so this is what the Jewish symbolism is all about, and Joseph Smith is using it. You need to know the Jews. And so sealing, Elijah, sealing your fate, the fate of your posterity, not baptisms for the dead. That's why it's abominable for this church to be baptizing Jews from the Holocaust. It's a deep insult. But that's the Danites, the day of judgment, the judges. That's what they're doing. They're replacing the Jews, just like Christians, just like Islam. Claiming Jesus is telling them to hurt people, to murder, to commit crime, to rape. Jesus told me to rape you. Hold still. I saw a Diane Lane video from 2008 that I didn't get to watch because of the church's abuse to try to murder me that year. Because I'm a translator and they're not. And it was very disturbing. A guy purposely murdering people because of those multi-millions who are watching. The more people who watch, the quicker the person dies live on the internet. So yeah, it was bad. The evil of the Danites. That's how evil they are. That's how evil the Mormons are, who don't care to know anything about the truth. The church is right at all costs and will commit crimes to prove it, even if it's murder, cyber terrorism, crime, theft, rape. Church is true, and we're gonna prove it. Okay? And so we'll read this passage that is significant for Yom Kippur, the sealing of the verdict. A great shofar horn will be blown, and a small, still voice. Does that sound familiar, Mormons? Or have you forgotten about that altogether now with the still small feeling? Yeah, it's still in the Book of Mormon. The still small voice. There it is, from the Jews. Will be heard. The angels will make haste and be seized with fear and trembling, and will say, behold the day of judgment. Remember Joseph Smith? Judgment day is coming. Lehi. Sees the book. Judgment day is coming. See the pattern? On Rosh Hashanah it is written on papyrus scroll, the K for Kippur. And on the Yom Kippur fast it is sealed. Concluded. Finished. Fruit. The Jews know, but they don't know they know. How many will pass and how many will be created? See, they don't know how to decipher Paleo-Hebrew, but you can see in the traditions that they talk about it, but they don't realize that that comes from the meaning in Paleo-Hebrew of Kippur. How many will pass and how many will be created? Who will live and who will die? Who is his time and who is not his time? A time to live, a time to join, a time to find. I don't know the list, and it's a proverb or psalm or something like that. Ecclesiastes maybe, isn't it? But repentance, prayer, and charity remove the evil of the decree. For you do not desire a person's death, but rather that he repent and live. I don't desire you to die, Mormons. I want you to repent and live. Amazing. Until the day of his death, you wait for him. If he repents, you accept him immediately. And repentance is not saying, oops, my bad. And the Jews miss out on one of the features of repentance. I don't know if I'll be covering it or not, but you have to restore the damage that you caused. Otherwise, it is not repentance. And so, yeah, you can confess that you did it. Good for you. You can pray and ask for forgiveness. Great. But unless you restore the damage, and there are murder that cannot be restored. And so you don't get to go to Zion if you are a murderer. Killing is not murder. Murder is what the Danites do. Killing is what the victims of the Danites do, maybe, if they succeed to defend themselves against the Danite murder threat. Okay. Yom Kippur was also unique as a time of closeness to God in the Yom Kippur temple service. There is no temple in Jerusalem anymore. Yom Kippur was the only occasion on which the high priest of Israel was allowed to enter the Holy of Holies. Who's the high priest of the church? The Christ, the man like Moses. Section 85, verse 7, the one mighty and strong, from Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19. Verse 8, no authority to touch the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. He dies. Verse 20 in Deuteronomy. Purposely not footnoted for that reason. The innermost chamber of the temple in Jerusalem, where God's presence was said to dwell. Yeah, the man like Moses is God. The sun god at noonday. See, the Jews have been screwed up by Constantine. On Yom Kippur, the high priest enters the Holy Holies several times. First to create a cloud, suddenly come to his temple in the clouds. Sun god and the clouds. And so then there's incense smoke for this intention, not just for prayer, but also the clouds of the coming of the future man like Moses, Messiah, and David Moses. God would reveal himself without being seen. Constantine. And later to offer sacrifices of atonement. There's a little on my screen. So atonement. This is all what it's for, and the Jews have forgotten. It's the coming of their Christ. Not even the Rambam knew. Yep, there's Nadab and Abihu. According to the Torah, the Yom Kippur temple service was commanded in the wake of the deaths. Remember prophecy and Revelation. Yom Kippur, which is Saturday, October 12th, the Jewish Sabbath, Friday night, in the wake of the deaths who failed their judgment of Nadab and Abihu, Nelson and Oaks. On the 8th day of the tabernacle inauguration, which is the new year, because the 9th is the Yom Kippur. 15th is Tabernacles. Not only was this 8th day the occasion of the Yom Kippur command, but the 8th day was also similar in its nature to Yom Kippur. So they're saying 8th, but that's because of the evening being the first day. Both in biblical texts and in rabbinic interpretation. The purpose of the 8th day was the revelation of God's presence to the people. And see, they even botched it because of Constantine changing the definition of revelation to inspiration rather than day and hours, which is why the book of Revelation has a whole bunch of days and hours of future predicted events. The Yom Kippur service was a unique opportunity for people's representative to obtain closeness with God. And then you sing the Song of Songs, which President Spencer W. Kimball said he stapled it shut because it's porn. And those pomegranates. No. Okay, Nadab and Abihu. It's from Leviticus chapter 10. Pay attention, guys. They were the two oldest sons of Aaron. They have no authority. They do not have the authority of the keys of Moses for the Christ to be the head of the church. And so, thus, they are the oldest, because the oldest becomes the president of the church after the death of the president of the church, the oldest apostle. That's the way Brigham Young changed it. And so, the two oldest, who are the two oldest in the church, Nelson and Oaks. You are familiar with the history? Why is Oaks not the president of the church and Nelson is? Because Oaks couldn't give up the world. He wanted to finish out his term as Supreme Court Justice for Utah. And so he's second. And thus Nelson became first. And Nelson's baby name meaning is Lucifer. Fun. Book of Mormon is so true. Okay? And so these guys don't have authority as they commit abomination. According to Leviticus 10, they offered a sacrifice with foreign fire. They that come shall burn you. The church has been raising up money to pay the Judas price to betray and murder Mormons, to do away with Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. Foreign fire. Before the Lord. Temple Square. Disobeying the commandment of the Lord, the instructions, and were immediately consumed by God's fire. Hey, that's Elijah versus the priests of Baal. We just had it. Prophecy fulfilled. Okay? But apparently there's going to be an actual death of Oakes and Nelson in the coming days. Remember the dreams that I had. Hinckley was the president of the church. He was now dead. He gives me the key card to his office with 77 on it. Then Monson. I have his boots. I offer it back. He doesn't want them. I'm in a tent. Nelson Monson was the president of the church. And then 9/11, Irene, not the president of the church. He's fourth in line. 3 people have to die first before he becomes the president of the church. Perry, Packer, Scott die. Nelson, Oakes, Holland, because Ballard died last year. But the sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven. And tithing, robbing God, giving it to Ballard. Oops. Interesting how you died after getting caught. And so, we again remind you of the curse of Joseph Smith, renamed. And so, yeah, Joseph Smith Jr. murdered 27th of June, 1844. As a solar eclipse, 16th of June, 1844. Lunar eclipse, 31st of May, 1844. And so, as he was murdered, so shall the false accusers who had him murdered, according to Deuteronomy 19, Purim, shall they die in like manner. Official Declaration number 1, verse 11. Bye-bye. So Brigham Young, yep. Double whammy for solar. John Taylor, Wilford Woodruff, oops, double whammy on both. Lorenzo Snow, Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. Ooh, he died in that outbreak, that back then, in 1918. Heber J. Grant, George Albert Smith, David O. McKay, Joseph Fielding Smith Jr. Interesting. He takes over right before the big event for Mormons, the seed egg baby. Now that's stuck on my mind. To be raised up unto Mormons, to be the Christ. Through Hiram also. This is the grandson of Hiram. And he's now the president of the church. He has no authority. It's not to be him. And yet here he is, the president of the church, when the real authority is born. Harold B. Lee, Spencer W. Kimball, Ezra Taft Benson, Howard W. Hunter, Gordon B. Hinckley, and then Thomas S. Monson was massive. Revelation chapter 12 verse 4, after his birthday solar eclipse over the United States of America in the first year of the latter days, setting it all off, as he's a double whammy on both. Hales also would be a part of the first batch. And then Russell Marion Nelson, everything's set up. It's all waiting. Any day now. He's on his deathbed. He fell last year. He just did a video that was, I guess, streamed, or was it pre-recorded and streamed? They announced it, so I'm assured that they had already recorded it and that they were going to stream it live that night. So I have not heard from it. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some doozies in there for sure, because every Nelson video involves doozies. And so Judgment Day is coming. The new year is coming. They have to confess their sins. They have to restore the damage. And the damage they've caused cannot be fully restored. So the best they can do is hand it over to the true Christ. Just like the Way to Perfection says they're going to do, as well as Nelson in response to the whistleblower saying we're just following the parable of the talents. Which the parable of the talents is that Jesus is coming for the latter days, and that Nelson is supposed to give him the church and the money. So is he going to do it? Or is Judgment Day set? It's up to Nelson. He's free to choose. So, these are the things that the Jews practice on Yom Kippur. They have a fast, no eating and no drinking. No water, no food. Similar to Mormons fasting. No wearing of boots. All three involved Yom Kippur, involved the latter days. They're all Jewish. Jewish interpretation is required for my dreams. Weird. These boots were made for walking. And so here it's leather shoes, but they were leather boots. No bathing or washing. Pew. They are unclean. This is the Day of Atonement. The Jews don't understand what all this is for. This is someone who has failed their judgment. And no anointing. Remember, leaving no root, Joseph Smith, or branch, me. No anointed one. If Mormons refuse, Zion cannot be built. There's no reason for a Messiah if nobody believes in him. Joseph Smith will be destroyed. The Book of Mormon will be destroyed. It will be useless for an individual Mormon outside of Utah to go around telling people about the Book of Mormon, another testament of Jesus Christ, when the world heard it on the news that the church ceased to exist? Yeah, isn't this religion that got destroyed? Good luck with that. Trying to resurrect from the grave the church that just got destroyed. You'll be like a Seventh-day Adventist. And no sex. No root nor branch, utterly wasted, father to son. No posterity. Jews don't understand why. What do you mean we can't have sex? And so, the fast in custom is required for all males over the age of 13. Females over the age of 12. Females have to do it too? What do you mean they can't have sex? It's not just men who can't have sex? Okay. Other observances. On Yom Kippur, Jews are similar to the angels in heaven, who are said to wear white. Malachi, angel, white, at the bedside. The man like Moses, the sun god at noonday. Alludes to the verse, if your sins are like crimson, Isaiah 63, Revelation 19. They shall become as white as snow, Isaiah 1:8. And so, even though this is 2.5 hours into the video, which if I don't finish before 3 hours, I'm going to have to stop the video and proceed on to hours 5 in a new segment. But as I'm going over footnotes that have been neglected by the church, I don't know if you're using printed scriptures anymore, but I'm hoping that if you are using printed scriptures, that you're studying your scriptures, that you are annotating them with the corrected footnotes that I'm giving you. Just saying. Just saying. To recall the high priest who wore white for the Yom Kippur temple service. The Lord suddenly comes to his temple in the latter days. Joseph Smith's second vision. Yom Kippur is not always, it's not always on the Sabbath day. But Yom Kippur, regardless of whether it's on the Sabbath day, like this year, for example, or if it's on another day, is still considered a day of rest. This is a Babylonian thing, but nonetheless. Shabbat, Shabbaton, on which work is prohibited. You can't do work either. And so any activities are forbidden on Sabbath are also forbidden on Yom Kippur. So it depends on which Jewish sect you're a part of as to whether or not flipping on the lights is a violation of the Sabbath or not. There are some Jews who will flip on the lights before the evening of Sabbath, Friday, 5:59 p.m. They rush to flip on the lights all around the house so that on the Sabbath they don't have to do that work. Just a simple flipping on of the lights, huh? Yeah, where others go, come on, seriously, flipping on lights? That's not an issue for us. And Mormons go to the extreme for their Sabbath violation by saying, well, if you flip on the lights, you're forcing the people to work on Sunday at the electric company. If you go shopping on Sunday, you're forcing other people to work. So we need to take away their agency and have them lose money so that they can't afford to live and ruin their business. Looking beyond the mark. You missed the understanding. This is Judgment Day. These are all the things of a failed judgment. The person is sinful, refuses to repent, refuses to be good, and is to be destroyed. Day that shall burn as an oven. And, oops, this one. And so, anybody recall, as it's been mixed with temple work, baptisms for the dead, which is Danites, get rid of that. Forged document. I think it's section 128. Think instead Malachi. The Jews. Joseph Smith. So there's the prophecy that in the latter days, with the temple, there will be the Levites offering an offering in righteousness. The big old barbecue. You can be a big pig too. Pigs are okay now. Which is very curious because the Greeks, with the abomination of desolation on the temple altars, burning pigs as sacrifices, which in the law of the Jews, it's in several books. No pigs because of the hoofs. And so Peter in Acts has his dream in which pigs are okay to be sacrificed on altars. But none of this is literal history. It's prophecy of the latter days. Bringing back the bacon, baby. So when the temple in Jerusalem stood, and this is what we're talking about, tabernacles, tent temple, because Mormons were wicked and didn't leave in 2020 to start building it. The prophecies knew Mormons would be wicked and would go to the very final end to try to save Mormons, and still, is all of this in vain, Mormons? Seriously? And so, this is the Levite thing. The offering up of sacrifices again. Not just because we're all in an exodus and we're in tents, we need food to survive. There's symbolism behind it all. And so Yom Kippur is to be the occasion of an elaborate sacrificial service. Symbol of the two guys who didn't offer it correctly, which are the false prophet and the sidekick. How does it feel to be a sidekick, Oaks? And the true sacrifice, all involving the day that shall burn as an oven, the abomination of desolation, as spoken of by Daniel, which the Greeks, with the offering of pigs. So, all part and parcel in the symbolism. Okay, this is Sukkot. So are we done with... Let's go over Yom Kippur, Sign and Evans. Then I think we're done with Yom Kippur. Al Capone! And so, yeah, we may want to stop this anyway. And then I'll record the Feast of Tabernacles after that. Since we're nearing 3 hours. So if I end up recording the Tabernacles and it's 20 minutes, it's not my fault. Okay. On the 12th of October, 2024. This is the Day of Atonement. So remember the two anti-Mormon, anti-Christ, apostate Korahors who die for offering up foreign fire? Adab and Abihu. Is that the names? Did I remember them correctly? Yeah, guess where Mars is? Remember, Mars is Nelson. Where is he? There he is. In Gemini. The two brothers. And there's death and resurrection. The one brother dies, but is brought back to life by his immortal brother. But will Nelson confess and hand over the church and money so that we can go build Zion and make it self-sufficient and self-sustaining so that we don't use money for the economy? No money, no price. But it's going to require money to build it. Thank you, Danites, for collecting and hoarding all that money in violation of United States law. But are you going to confess? So, the shofar horn is Orion. I always thought that was strange, even though it's an hourglass shape, sort of. It's a little awkward in the middle, with a belt of Orion, the three wise men pointing to Sirius, the dog star of Horus. The sun god a new day, Sun Amun. We have come to worship him. Where is he? He's not here in the Roman period time. Oops. Yeah. I recall during the 2000s when I would be running in the morning, seeing Orion in the sky and going, that looks exactly like a shofar horn. And the planets or the moon would be there, and I'd go, yeah, it's like a message for a religion. And so, yep, sure enough. So on this day, the shofar horn is blowing. And it's blowing the fiery darts of the adversary to the earth. the Oranid meteor showers, the falling stars, or death. Fall of Monson, the fall of every single president since Joseph Smith, the curse of Joseph Smith. Falling stars is the trumpet warning from the shofar horn of Orion, who is Osiris, an Egyptian, by the way. And so, where's Jupiter? Where am I? Between the horns of the Apis bull, waiting for the transfer of authority. The rightful king, right? Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. And then we have the three falling stars there with Aries, Andromeda, and the southern Taurids. Ooh, is there a fourth? So yeah, Andromeda is separate. So there's three, but three falling stars in Aries. The sacrificial ram-lamb constellation. Abraham sacrificing Isaac. Messenger appears. Mercury. Solar eclipse in Aries. 8 April 4 CE. 20 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem is the Exodus. 600 years. 8 April. The eclipse of Abraham sacrificing Isaac. All in the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith Sr. was brilliant to use that to reveal the Exodus, knowing that only I would figure it out. It's just sad. I didn't want to figure it out. I wanted to read it from somebody else. I don't want this. What do you mean I'm born to do it? Come on. So there's the three, not just two. Three falling stars sacrificed on Yom Kippur for not repenting. And so who would take over the church? Irene, unless Irene dies. Because Irene's near death too. Huh? Why is it just Nelson, Oakes, and Holland? Because Holland didn't die last year like he almost did. So yeah, then Ballard had to take his place. Final destination. It skipped the one guy, so it went to the next person, and then it's going to come back around. Awesome series. Well done, Ali Larder. Final destination. 9-inch nails. Or 9-inch snails on the Muppet Show. Saturn is being purified. Because that's what Yom Kippur Atonement is all about, being purified. In Malachi, he is sitting as a refiner's fire in a fuller's soap. Washing and fire. Water, baptism of water, baptism of fire. To purify. 9/11s. 9th Ave, 9/11. And so Saturn is being purified in the waters. And so the moon. Most people believe it's just the cornucopia with all of the fruit in it from harvest. And they don't realize that it's actually decapitated. That it's the goat beast of Lucifer. And there the moon is, of religion. The great and abominable church shall fall, and great shall be the fall thereof. And so the church, the bride, Venus of Lucifer, the symbol, is being weighed in the balances, waiting for the judgment ceiling of failure. And there's Mercury and the Sun at the womb of Virgo, at Bethlehem's star called Spica, the house of bread, with the sheaves of wheat in her hand. My Yerman Thummim says she's got him in both hands, but Spica is at the left hand, where the planets hang out. Okay? Fascinating. So yeah, the Jews don't know about this, even though they know, but they don't know they know, because they told you, I read it all to you. Alrighty, next is Suck It. Take a little break here. Get your popcorn and Mountain Dew. Travis Wayne Goodsell. I'm announcing my name at the beginning of this video segment, even though it's a part 2, but I figured it probably will be better to do 2 videos, an A and a B. So the first one is Yom Kippur, and then this one will be Suck It, Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Booths, Feast of Ingathering, Feast of the Harvest. And so the reason why I am not making the first video is because if I did, I would be bathing and shaving and changing the shirts. So I'm keeping with the symbolism and making both recordings first, and then we'll make both videos afterward. And then upload them today. So, this is it. Both for this video series and for Mormons. If Mormons refuse to believe, then the consequences are going to follow. And I explain it all with the Day of Atonement, the first segment. So now all of these lead to the Feast of Tabernacles, tents. And so, threw it away, didn't I? Here it is. Right on top. So in the Exodus, the Feast of Tabernacles is actually called the Feast of Ingathering. In Leviticus, it is compared to the Exodus of Passover. And in Deuteronomy, it's the Festival of Booths. And so I can tell this mission story now. Served my mission in New York, 1989 to 1991. So I know all about the penalty for violating the temple covenants of death, along with other fun stuff that the church is trying to hide and say, we don't do that anymore. Yeah, you do. You're bringing it back. Or you're attempting to bring it back. And while I was out in New York, there's Jewish communities out there. And unfortunately, despite America intending to be a melding pot, not a melting pot, melding, in which people from every single nation around the world who wants to free persecution and oppression and tyranny and abuse and all that can come to America for freedom and be Americans. Instead, people are coming to America to overthrow America and coup it with their religion or their nationality. And so we have separate but equal communities in America. Little Tokyo, little Japan, little China, little Korea, little Asia, little Philippines, little Scotland, little Ireland, little Italy, little Russia. Whether we have them or not, that's communities have developed that way over time. So the Jews likewise. America was supposed to be a final place where Jews can own land and live free after being chased around Europe for 2,000 years. Not to be. And so, yeah, there are Jewish communities in New York. And not knowing, because the church doesn't teach it, I would see during the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Booths, these wooden attachments to apartment buildings in New York. And it was quite fascinating to watch, as I didn't know what it was, but knew we were in a Jewish neighborhood, and that these Jews were doing it because of their belief, thinking that they had to do it as a sign of obedience, not understanding that it was prophecy and revelation of the future coming of their Christ, the man like Moses. And the tabernacle of the temple of a tent, because the house of Israel were wicked. And so, yeah, there were lots of interesting things that I learned about the Jews on my mission as a result. And so, yeah, that's why Deuteronomy, the law of the Jews, talks about the festival of booths. In Numbers, we have a different scenario in which it exposes the prophecy of an attempted coup in the latter days to prevent Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon from continuing on. That there's an evil effort to destroy Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon after using them to make money for almost 200 years. And so, yeah, Miriam and Aaron want to coup Moses and take away his religion. And so the Lord comes to the tabernacle, the tent, temple, and tells them what for and wherewith, saying that his chosen prophet will be through a dream or vision, which is exactly what the story is all about. Awesome. So maybe I should put this in my file, which I'm wanting to pack away to retire, but because of my 9/11 dream of Irene wanting to lay his hands on my head with 2 15s involved, I then found out that, oh, yep, we're not done yet. We're going into overtime. So, Feast of Tabernacles. Tabernacle contains the word sukkot. Technically just suck. If I were to do Chinese, there's a restaurant here in Utah that if you were to pronounce it, you'd be locked up in prison in Utah. How dare you say that word? It's a 4-letter word, but it's only spelled with 3 letters for the name of the company. I've never been there, but I'm sure the food is good. So I'm not discouraging going there. I'm actually promoting it secretly. You'll have to figure out what it is. It's on the bus route. I used to see it all the time when I was in West Valley. And it's the last name of the family that was in the ward there in West Valley. The mother and daughter living all alone in the house. It starts with an A, but I can't remember. But I think the crossroad is 45th south. But yeah, just follow the bus route on 45th. It'll take you through a little side detour, and then eventually we'll get you back on the main road. I think it's 45th, but regardless. And so yeah, it's just right there at the street corner of the two, where there's a bus stop there at the corner. And so, yeah. Pronounce the name, and yes, it is to be pronounced that way. Anyway, and so tabernacle has 2 additional letters, because sukkot is in the plural and thus the T at the end. That's why it's sukkot. It's tabernacles, which technically is not tabernacles, because in order to be tabernacles, it has to have an M and an N before and at the end of the word, as a prefix and a suffix determinative for suck. And suck is contained with an S and a K. The S is the water symbol. The K is the papyrus scroll symbol. So the heavens are in the upper waters. That's why it's first. And so it's the sign in the heavens recorded in prophecy and revelation. And so M is the high priest symbol, with the water symbol and the J stroke for a human, as the high priest pouring water like Aquarius, high priest. The N is the little crown V with the cobra out on front, and then the J stroke for the king. And the 2 of them together are Melech, Zadok. Just reversed. It's Zadok then Melech. But nonetheless, it's the same concept. Melchizedek, the king and high priest, which Amen, the sun god at noonday. So the signs in the heavens, yeah, it's all about the sun god at noonday, along with other signs in the heavens. So that's tabernacle. That's his house for that reason. The house of the Lord, the temple. And here we have tabernacle as a tent. And so it's his house on earth in that concept. And so the Melchizedek, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, the great high priest on earth, which is Pharaoh, son Amen, has his temple on earth for this whole concept. You visualize the meaning of the words. And so Suck is just the revelation of the latter days, from the signs in the heavens, which Isaiah talks about a sign, which is just the one X, whereas signs in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 and Jeremiah 3, is it 10? It's the Christmas tree one. Why are you looking for signs? Those, it has the double T's. So this year, on 8 April 2024, the sun god at noonday lost its eye, went blind, as it crossed over the first two paths of the sun over the United States of America, creating the two crosses of the sun god, the Chi-Rho of Constantine. But, just the one for Isaiah, which was the Chi-Rho. And so 15th of Tishri is the Feast of Tabernacles. It's the 7th month in the religious calendar, and it is the first month of the civil calendar. The 15th day. And so, it's the gathering of Israel, the ingathering, the harvest. So the keys of Moses are the keys of the gathering of the house of Israel in an exodus to the temple in Zion in southern Illinois, where X marks the spot on 8 April 2024. You're supposed to follow the sun. I'll follow the sun. As Utah, on the 14th of October 2023, where did it go? It went down to Travis County, Texas, where the sun on 8 April 2024 crossroads Travis, sun god, god soul, cross, and you follow Travis, god soul, to Zion in southern Illinois. Clever, those ancients. And so yeah, my Hinckley dream, my Irene dream, my Monson dream all play a part in this. And so the 17th of October to the 24th of October, just like the 2017 to 2024. Oh my God. The first and last year of the latter days, the first and last day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Just unbelievable. We gotta add that to this thing also. Where are you? Here you are. October 17th, October 24th, 2024. Dualisms. Trying to help Mormons see it, so that they will not be destroyed, that they will be saved in Zion, that they will pass their second estate, not be burned by they that come who shall burn you. And so then the 7 seraphim men and the 2 sets of 7 seraphim females. 2 sets of 7 again. So let's get to this. So the Feast of Tabernacles is the Exodus. It's the same as Passover. This is the gathering. This is the Exodus. This is going to Zion. And they failed. They don't go to Zion. They're wicked. And so there's sacrifices to the cow god, the golden cow, gold cow. The golden cow lay hidden. supposed to be gold. Okay, and so this is interesting because it's Kabbalah, Jewish Kabbalah, Lurianic Kabbalah specifically, talking about Ushpizin and Ushpizata. It's a prayer to invite one of the 7 exalted guests to the Feast of Tabernacles. And so for each day, a different messenger appears. This is different from the Passover, in which only Elijah is to come. Okay? Elijah for Passover, 7 male seraphim, and 2 sets of 7 female seraphim for each day of the Feast of Tabernacles. 7s for the Jewish calendar, 8s for our calendar. Thus, my dream with Hinckley, 77 and 88. And so the names of the 3 shepherds or seraphim for men, also called guests, are Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, then David. Now, the Jews don't understand this because they believe that they're ranked in ranking order. So Abraham being the greatest, down to David, which is the lower of the seraphim. And so they think that Joseph is associated with the Yeshod, the lower seraphim, because following Moses and Aaron, because they're following the Netzach and Hod respectively, even though he precedes them in the narrative. And no, it's not literal history. That was Constantine. The Jews forgot. The Jews got fooled by Constantine. So no, they know, but they don't know they know. And it's sad. They need to be taught the origin of their religion. Because even Israel, to this day, they're finding archaeological evidence during the Roman period time, and they're going, see, we were here. See? You don't need to prove it. Just because Israel or Islam is claiming you don't belong there, you don't need to prove it. You were there first. That's not a debate. It's just Islam bullying you, trying to kick you out of your land again, as they were part of the remnants of the survivors of the Babylonian destruction by Persia. They fled into Saudi Arabia and thus gave birth in 600 CE to almost, wow, interesting, 1,200 years later, almost. But Muhammad, the emergence of Muhammad from Saudi Arabia among the Babylonians. And Jews were also there in Saudi Arabia, having escaped the Roman destruction. And so Muhammad believes that he was the Jewish Christ and claimed the crescent moon, which is actually the eclipsing sun, with the star, which is the moon, from Revelation 19, 11, and 17. And Islam doesn't even know and understand their religion unless they're just lying to us like they're lying to us about everything else. We want peace. We just won't tell you that it's after everybody else is dead. And so, yeah, these are the main patriarchs, Christs, in the Bible stories of the Jews. And so the females have 2 sets. And so the first set is Sarah, Miriam, Deborah, Hannah, Abigail, and there's the two new names of my two failed marriages, Huldah and Ishtar, Esther. And then the second set is Ruth, which is the wife of Ra, the sun god of the Egyptians, not the sun god at noonday, the full sun during the day. Different sun. Sarah, Rebecca, Miriam, Deborah, Tamar, and Rachel, as we incorrectly pronounce it. Incorrectly pronounce all of it, and even that pronunciation is incorrect because it's Paleo-Hebrew is a dead language and it's a visionary language anyway. You need to see how it's spelled from Paleo-Hebrew to see what each of those names actually mean. Thus Ruth, for example, which is fun because it's the moon, the wife religion, who stands in the sun that causes the shadow on earth for the crossroads. And the T at the end of Ruth is considered the feminine ending for Egyptian and is only used by one of the Masoretic groups from 800 to 1000, whereas the other group of Masoretes working on the Masoretic text of the Bible used the H in Paleo-Hebrew for the feminine ending, which is in Aramaic. Well, A is the actual end for Aramaic. But so yeah, that's interesting that Ruth, having Ra, the Egyptian god of the sun, with the T at the end, and so it's the crossroads of the sun, which Revelation 19, 11 and 17, angels standing in the sun. You're my angel, miracle, you're all I ever need, you bring laughter, whatever, Lionel Richie. Don't memorize, it's been too long since I've heard it. So, yeah, fun stuff. And so, it did take longer than 20 minutes. And so, yeah, understand, we'll review from some of the previous video that I did, that it all begins with the new year. As the last day before the new year is a lunar or a solar eclipse, just like the last day of the year for 8 April 2024, which caused the crossings of the sun god at noonday. And so if I can keep this within the next 10 or 15 minutes, I may just add it to the end of the previous video, but if I keep talking, I won't. And so the new year is the overtime. And so 9 days is the Day of Atonement. And then 6 days is the day of the Feast of Tabernacles, the Exodus. And so this is where I'm going, because I'm wanting to retire, and I was telling you that I was going to do a video on the 12th. I'm retiring, and you know, if Nelson dies or somebody else dies, yeah, I'll step in to do a video about it. You know, I have that set up here for that. You know, the curse of Joseph Smith. Or if something else happens, you know, like somebody drops the bomb on the Temple Mount, or in America, I'll cover it. But I told you, we already know the bloodbath is coming for the election. the Civil War. The election fraud and tampering is already begun before it even started. It's repeating 2020. We know it's coming. They're already doing it. Our government's not stopping them. Again. They're letting it happen. They're letting the coup happen. And this time they've chased out the ones who failed them in 2020 so that new people who would not fail them this time are put in place. And even though the DOJ said, don't you do it, they're going to do it. We know it's coming. We're being threatened. Kamala Harris and Biden refused to do their job and invoke the Insurrection Act against this coup in progress. They failed to lock up everybody involved in 2020. And so, I guess we better vote for Harris, because why? They're going to let the coup happen anyway? It doesn't matter if Taylor Swift endorses Harris as a cat lady. Single cat lady who's eating her cat so that she can be deported. We already know what's going on. And yet they're doing it in the hopes of deceiving people and fooling people. Yeah, because the deep state Dems are clueless. The press, oh my God. Nobody's getting it. Everybody's letting it happen. It's right in our faces. We know it's coming. They're purposely causing Trump to lose so that he can deny it and start the war, the bloodbath. You'd think if he doesn't want to go to prison that he'd do all he can to win. Nope. He's purposely ruining it to lose so that he can start a fight, getting you to fight for him, and thus keep him out of prison that way, destroying the federal government. 3 Nephi chapter 7. So we know it's coming, but it's after the exodus of the Feast of Tabernacles. And this is where you need to pay attention to the prophecies of Scripture, the Exodus patterns. See, the Moses Exodus, Moses leaves. Pharaoh is still Pharaoh, his son is dead. And if you understood what that means, it means that after Moses leaves, the dynasty ends and a new dynasty takes over. The destruction of the government. But the Exodus came first. And so here we see the pattern. The Exodus is coming first before the bloodbath to destroy America. You are being given an opportunity to Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. Otherwise, your judgment will be set. The earth will be utterly wasted, and you'll be left with neither root nor branch. Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon, gone forever, destroyed because you chose Jesus? Trump? Okay? And so this is weird in how it's working out. My #1 video, still to this day, because of the abuse of the church ordering the YouTube Mormon employee to silence my voice to keep you from knowing about this. He wants you dead. He doesn't like you. He's a fellow Mormon, just like you. And he wants you dead, so that you don't listen, so that Jesus is true. Because Jesus wants to murder you, steal your money, and murder you. Isn't that special? Joseph Smith, you don't believe him. If you don't believe me, you don't believe Joseph. You don't believe the Book of Mormon. If you believe me, you believe Joseph, and you believe the Book of Mormon. It's real simple, because that's all I preach from is Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. See, I didn't want to be the Christ. I was just born that way. So, on October 18th, which was the first day, 17th in our calendar at 6 p.m. for the Jews. Judgment is set. The church falls. You're being judged. You've been judged. You're at the bottom of the scales of Libra, Venus, the church. The inverted pentagram of Lucifer on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple. That's you, Mormons. So Mercury is the messenger. It's also Trump, which is weird. Is there at the feet, being trampled on by Virgo, the church. I still have to find out about his little speech at the airport yesterday in Salt Lake. The Son is being born. The kingdom of Zion. The church and kingdom. They're at Bethlehem, Spica. And so Dallas Corbin Multipass. I saw her Ultraviolet yesterday. She's awesome. Especially her Zombie Apocalypse series. And so Nelson, still in Gemini, he's been judged. Nelson and Oaks, along with Holland. Pay attention, guys. My dream says Irene is going to be the default leader of the church. And he's going to hand it off to me. I guess he doesn't want to die or be found guilty. He's repented. Is it because of your daughter? Did she ever get married? It's been a while since I've talked about my one-on-one with Irene's daughter. I could talk about it and make this a completely separate video. It's entering into that realm where it will be. Or Kimberly and her one-on-one talking about my Paleo-Hebrew decipherment with Irene's wife, who sadly died because she had dementia, wasn't it? Not Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or the other, yeah, is it Parkinson's that also has the forgetful memory? But regardless. And so, yeah, the Geminids, falling stars, are also there with Mars. The Orionids are still there in conjunction. And there I am, in between the shofar horn, between the shofar horns of the Taurus bull, the caps sun caps, sun discs that we wore on our heads in the temple. They've now done away with that, I think. Because they've done away with the veil for women. Maybe they still have I don't know. I didn't see the sun disk for women. It was only for men that had the sun disk, and only certain men didn't have the sun disk in it. Guess they wanted to be like women. And so the moon is there in Aries, with the 3 falling stars, the southern Taurids, the northern Taurids, the autumn Aritids. Nelson, Oaks, Holland, with the moon for religion. Falling stars. You don't want to go against God on this one. This has been planned for billions of years. And so the Andromedids are also right up above. Andromeda tied to the stone for the Kraken to eat her. But then Jesus comes from outer space on the back of the flying white horse Pegasus, in the clouds of glory, to destroy the wicked and overthrow the governments, to save Andromeda. Clash of the Titans, or Clash in Wrath. I think it's in Wrath that part happened, didn't it? Because they split it into the 2 movies. And so Saturn, the father of Jupiter, is getting purified in the waters of the high priest. Okay, so that's a sign in the heavens for the 15th of Tishri, 2024. And then I had some close-ups. That's not a close-up. That's another... And that's the last day of it. Interesting. Alrighty. So you really don't want to be a couch potato on this and procrastinate your repentance until the last day. Because what does the Book of Mormon tell you about those who procrastinate their day of repentance? Why did you think it was there for? It's Jewish. It's not Christian. Okay, I think that's it. Because all the notes have been taken care of. Everything's been dealt with. We're done. All the pictures, I've gone through those already with you. And so all the rest that's left to do is putting in the pictures. The new pictures that I created for this series.